So the party sees this black smoke coming from Beregost, and at this point they start rushing back. They're, frantic to get back to check on the town. And as they get to the town, a lot of it, picture almost like all the buildings, or maybe not all, but most of the buildings are actually on fire. There's bodies lining the streets. A lot of civilians have been killed. So they start going around. They actually notice that the Feldpost Inn is on fire. The Burning Wizard Inn is on fire. Uh, in particular, Taram's blacksmith shop. It's not on fire, but it looks to be basically wrecked. Um, and they immediately go into town. They start checking on everybody to see, who's still alive. They notice the barkeep of Feldpost in particular. I don't know if I ever named him, but that he is sadly passed away. He's dead, and they check. They notice Landrin is dead. Sadly, near the Burning Wizard Inn, Zerlong, he didn't make it either. So at this point, they also come across uh, the old woman, Teresa. And once again, she's it looks like Teresa was doing battle. At this point, they notice some soldiers on the ground near her, and it looks like she was just doing engaging in combat with them. But she unfortunately did not make it. She did not survive. So the party is freaking out. Devia doesn't have any spells to resurrect, so they are frantically trying to see, okay, is there any way we can get them up? So it's at this point there's I didn't mention this yet, but the temple of the town it's also on fire. But they do notice one cleric coming from the temple, and she comes over to them, and the party frantically says, "Can you revive Teresa?" And so she says, "Okay, well, let me try," because she specializes in resurrection. So she starts. She places her hand, gets the materials ready. She places her hand on Teresa to try to raise her, but nothing happens. And so she says, "I'm sorry. I was hoping this would work, but it hadn't." So I kind of hinted at this earlier with Keldith's wife, early on in the earlier videos, but the priest told him back then that she didn't want to come back. But that wasn't the whole truth. Even back then, the priests were having trouble raising people. They just didn't want it to start spreading around. So they actually lied to Keldith and just told him she didn't want to come back. But in truth, they just couldn't resurrect anybody at the time. They are not sure what's wrong. So as it is, Teresa, Landrin, Zerlong, Feldpost, and also at this point, Keldith, he's also one of the unfortunate casualties of this, but they cannot be raised. So at this point, the party notices, kind of near the edge of town, also near some dead bodies, is Taram. But he looks to still be alive, so Devia rushes over, casts Cure Wounds on him, and brings him back. The first thing he tells them is Maggie and Kaladin safe? Like, I was helping them flee town. Where are they? Are they safe? Because last he tells them they were heading north, trying to flee from the army. Because he explains that all of a sudden, that these soldiers just started attacking the town, and what little of the Flaming Fist garrison that was here with Jesse tried to hold them off, but they couldn't. It is of note that Jesse, the one that was actually in command of the Flaming Fist, is actually nowhere to be seen. But Taram says the last he saw her, she was actually heading north with just a few soldiers left. Um, so he's asking about them. One nice little detail that I'm sure the player that played Devia probably didn't realize this at all, but back when Devia actually cast that illusion on herself to turn into Maggie, and kind of got Maggie and Kaladin to start seeing each other at his place, because his manor's at the north end of town. And I'm sure that the player didn't realize this, but because of that, Devia was actually responsible, basically helped them survive. Because if Maggie was still not staying with Kaladin, still at the Burning Wizard, she would have been dead. So the party at this point, they get Taram, the blacksmith, up on his feet. Up on his feet, I'm sorry. And so they say, okay, help out, try to put these fires out. We're going to go north. Try to put these fires out. Either go yourself or send somebody. Get the wizard off to the west, Thalantir. Bring him here. Try to form a group to try to help out as much as you can. So the party, Taram agrees, and the party starts to head north. And they head north, and they don't go that far. They come out to this clearing, and there's a hill. It's kind of like a little valley area, and it kind of goes up towards a hill. And in this valley, they see 35 soldiers left. And up on this hill, they see an injured Maggie. Kaladin is tending to her wounds as they're staying on this hill. And right in front of them are 3 Flaming Fist soldiers, just the regular soldiers. And the Flaming Fists, they are kind of all facing the 35 soldiers, the 35 soldiers. And they're telling Kaladin and Maggie that we'll die. We'll try to hold off these soldiers as long as we can. Y'all just try to flee to the north. And Maggie, being a little bit injured, not too severely, but still it kind of hinders her movement, that she's not sure if she can actually make it much farther. Like, she'll still be slow to make it north, and they're not sure if they're going to make it. So it's at this point Kaladin kind of tells Maggie, and he's shaking at this point. He's scared to death, but he draws his longsword and says that no, if we're gonna die here today, I'm gonna die protecting you. So he draws his longsword. He gets on the front line with up on that hill. I mean, they're all up on the hill, but with the Flaming Fist soldiers. And it's also at this point Maggie says, no, Kaladin, if we're going to die here today, we're going to die together. We're going to both die defending each other. And she, as best she can, she kind of brings herself to her feet, draws a dagger that she has. And they stand by each other along with the 3 Flaming Fist soldiers. And they're all on this hill looking down at those 35 soldiers. And the soldiers, from what the party can tell, they're about to charge their position. So the party, honestly, I gave them time. They didn't have to rush in making this decision. They debated on this for at least several minutes. It could have been longer. I'm not sure. But they thought, okay, those are a lot of guys. Like, our characters are probably about to die. But they really don't want Kaladin and Maggie to die either. So they're kind of going back and forth, like, I'm not sure if we can do this, that kind of thing. But it turns out that Taviri still had that last bead of Fireball. And they're debating on whether to use it, because Taviri really wanted to save it. But they talk it over for a few minutes, and Taveri does agree to let Devia have that bead. So Devia is going to throw that bead of fireball into the middle of this group and hopefully try to kill as many as it could. So Rowan gets in position with her bow. Taveri grabs her quarterstaffs, fixing to fly towards them. So Devia throws the bead of fireball, and as it's coming down, the leader of the armed soldiers, he draws his sword, he yells, "Charge!" And as they go to charge, the bead goes off right in the middle of that group and actually kills about 20 of them. So picture there's actually 2 columns now in the front charging ahead towards Kaladin and Maggie. And there's actually a column in the back. And that column in the back is immediately notices the party. They're going to start charging towards them. So Taveri starts to head and attack the column in the back. And Rowan, she's kind of going between the column in the front, column in the back, shooting her arrows at each one. Devia's also doing the same with her bow. So the front 2 columns, they start charging up that hill. The Flaming Fist soldiers get ready. Kaladin and Maggie are kind of hanging back behind them, but they're getting ready. And the column pushes forward. The Flaming Fist, they start swinging. And so this massive battle ensues. And as it continues on, one of the Flaming Fist soldiers actually goes down pretty easily. He's not dead, but he's pretty low on health. And it's at this point Devia casts that Invoke Duplicity again, sends her illusion right up next to that Flaming Fist soldier and casts Cure Wounds on him, brings him back up, and he starts engaging the soldiers again. Kaladin and Maggie are now getting into the fray. Maggie with her dagger, Kaladin with his longsword. And at this point, Maggie's kind of... they're tense as heck, but they're kind of have this, I guess, kind of acceptance of the fact that, you know, they might about to die. I'm sorry, I'm losing my words. They're about to die, but they've just kind of accepted that they're going to die together. So they're engaging the enemy, and Taveri's attacking the ones at the back. As the battle continues on, the 3 Flaming Fist soldiers, they get a little bit injured again, but they actually survive. Same with Kaladin and Maggie. And eventually, that front column is wiped out. And, I mean, at the time, I was kind of shocked at some of the rolls, because a lot of it was just like, a lot of misses went along with this, so they were just kind of locked in this combat. And Taveri keeps attacking the group in the back, basically kills all of them except one. They decide to to have one person survive out of the group. So they all, after this, Kaladin and Maggie and the Flaming Fist soldiers come down from the hill. They all meet in the valley. And as they're there, they start to interrogate this this soldier. And so they start to say, okay, why did your group attack Beregost? You know, what's up? So he starts to go into detail and says that, well, the city of Baldur's Gate, they attacked us first, you know, that they had previously wiped out one of their towns to the south called Kekzula. And they found evidence that the Flaming Fist did it. And Flaming Fists, you know, are from Baldur's Gate. So that's basically the reason he gave them. So they're kind of going back and forth, kind of, I guess you could say, kind of arguing with each other, you know, like, you know, why'd you do this, da-da-da-da. And at one point, I can't remember who it was specifically, but they had the idea that, you know what, why don't we send him back, kind of like as a peace envoy, to try to stop this madness before it gets worse. So none of the party, Kaladin and Maggie, they both agree that, you know what, we're gonna go with this guy, this soldier, because they start to have him see reason, you know, and so they agree that they're gonna go with the soldier down south, talk to the people of Nashkel, and then start heading to the capital of Athkatla and try to get this mess sorted out before it gets really worse. Um, just so I mention that here, because I might not mention it in another video, but Kaladin and Maggie, as they're going to go back to Nashkel, the party finds out later that Paul and Samantha, Paul that they rescued from the Null stronghold, and Samantha, they actually are going to go with Kaladin and Maggie with him as, you know, as a gesture of good faith, that they're going to get this sorted out. So before Kaladin and Maggie go, though, Kaladin kind of offhandedly tells the party to, if they ever go to Baldur's Gate, that if they can find his sister, if they see his sister, Lily Tavenhurst, to just kind of tell her where he's at right now, give her his regards. And they get a description of Lily, because what Kaladin says is Lily's been away from home for a while now, several months, and you know, she went to Baldur's Gate. That's the last he heard. And the description he gave of Lily is that it matches the same description as what Thomas gave of the woman, the hooded woman, pale complexion, that came in and gave him those blacksmithing tools back at the Friendly Armen. So the party just kind of notes this and kind of agree to tell Lily about what Kaladin, like where Kaladin's going to be going. So it is at this point that the party decide, okay, they're wiped out after doing this battle. They're really happy they're able to pull that off, and so they decide, okay, let's go back, let's check on Beregost. They head back to the town. The flames have started to die out now. They started to put it out. Thalantir has arrived. Taram and Thalantir kind of started this joint effort to round up any survivors, try to rebuild as much as they can, and then bring any of the dead bodies over near the temple, what is now the ruins of the temple, and bury them. So it's at this point that the party, they decide after this that they're gonna camp for the night.